Welcome to Real Talk, Real Life, an initiative by Crown Cross Healthcare. Today we have a wonderful guest with us. We're talking about mental health within the cancer space. We have a breast cancer survivor with us today, Maria. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you very
I'll
much.
just get straight into it. So, where were you when you first heard about your diagnosis? So what was that initial feeling when you found out?
Oh, terror,
Hmm.
terrified, devastated. I remember the space in our room when I got the call from the doctor,
Okay.
and it was quite confronting. And
Hmm.
the first thing was, why me? Because I do everything right to take care of my health, and
Hmm.
it was just utter confusion and devastation.
So, how was life before this? Did you feel like there was something wrong when you had the initial feeling like I should probably go to a doctor, or would you feel like, oh, normal day, normal life, and all of a sudden something happened, or everything changed around? How did that work?
There was an initial feeling, and that's the reason why my husband said, let's go get it checked out. So
Hmm.
I noticed a lump.
Yeah.
And I said, go get it checked out by the doctor. And
Hmm.
so she organized the mammogram and the
Hmm.
ultrasound. And that's when I said, no, it's something very different. And
Hmm.
so that's how it happened. So,
Okay.
and I was waiting actually for the doctor to call me
Hmm.
because I kind of had this niggling feeling like,
Okay.
okay, let me get this over and done with. Like, okay, everything's okay. I moved past it. But that niggling feeling kind of stayed with me.
Yeah. So you've got your diagnosis. What was the first thing you did? Like you got it, the phone call finished. What was the next thing you did on that?
I love that you asked that
Mm-hmm.
because my husband heard me in the way I responded to the doctor, and he immediately came by and I put the phone down and I just looked at him, and we looked at each other, and there were no words,
Mm-hmm.
and so I had to say, okay, there is the results saying it's malignant.
Mm-hmm.
We need to go to a clinic to get it sorted out, to actually get confirmation,
Hmm.
and that was it. And we just looked
Yeah.
at each other, and I think it was just too much to process. It was like,
Mm.
Goliath being hit in between the eyes of the stone.
It's
So it was
like,
like, whoa, okay.
yeah.
And I don't know if you've experienced that, but there are times where you feel so overwhelmed. Your
Mm-hmm.
brain it's like on a fritz.
Yeah.
That was
Definitely. So when that moment, did you feel like, oh, let's get this over and done with? We're gonna finish it off so quickly. It's gonna be nothing. Or was it like, okay, let's sit down, let's get an action plan going, let's take this step by step? Because I know in certain moments when something of a big thing happens,
mm,
I'm thinking, okay, I need to do this and this, and we can get it done with. The problem's fixed. I don't need to look at it again.
mm.
But was the thought to do that to get it done with, or was it like, okay, let's take our time, let's figure out what this is, and take it step by step?
I think it was a little bit of both
Okay.
because the doctor actually tried. She said, I'm going to call you back because I'm going to try to see if you can get an appointment
Mm-hmm.
the day after we
Okay.
got their diagnosis. And so we were waiting for her to get back, and
Mm-hmm.
we were just following her lead because
Okay.
we couldn't think anywhere otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And she called back and said, the clinic is closed. I'm going to call tomorrow,
Okay.
and only then we'll know when you can get in.
Mm-hmm.
So meanwhile, John and I were trying to, and I think the first thing we called out to was God
Mm-hmm.
because we were really struggling. And faith is a big part of our lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the important things that we said, okay, we don't know if it's going to be something that's easily fixed or it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be a long journey. And we know God is there with us.
Yeah.
But it was also the question of, God, why are you doing this?
Why?
Yeah.
So you said it was like the feeling of God. Why me?
Yes.
Th- would you say the first couple of weeks, those like emotionally, those waves were high? So there were moments like, okay, Lord, I trust in whatever it is.
Mm,
We're gonna go through it.
mm,
But then there's also, let's say, in the next hour or the next day, you're like, God, why? How did you go through that? Because it's in a very
mm,
emotionally kind of thing you
mhm,
have to deal with within
mhm,
yourself. It's like,
mm.
why me? But also, I want your plan. But it's like, why? Like, this is such a
Yes.
painful thing. How did that
Yeah.
work out?
And I call it the roller coaster.
Oh,
The
that's
roller coaster of faith, yeah,
mm-hmm.
because you have your highs and then your
Yeah.
lows, and then yeah. So I love that you asked that question because initially it was a lot of fear.
Mm.
In the background, God is there,
Yeah.
but it was a lot of fear. It was experiencing that terror, as I call it. It was
Mm-hmm.
like terror, and the pain, the ache in my heart was, I do not want my children to grow up motherless, my husband to be without a wife.
Mm.
That was the pain. It was like a physical pain in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
It was, yes, I thought about dying young, but I think that the thought of them being alone overshadowed that thought.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was why I was asking God, and it was and we told our parish priest. John called our parish priest, and he was there within a few hours. And I'm going to say it now. I think before that, I had had dinner, and I was so terrified. You know, this dread in the pit of your stomach. That's what I experienced. The tingling in my fingers. And he came, and within an hour, I had 3 sacraments. So I had the sacrament of reconciliation, the sacrament of Jesus, receiving Jesus in the Eucharist, and the anointing of the sick. And it was a miracle. It was a miracle because that feeling of dread just, I'm like, an hour later, I'm like, I don't feel that. You know how you do mental exercises? No, Jesus is there with me. I can do this. I didn't do any of those mental exercises. It was a miracle. I was one way before. I was totally different, 180 the next.
Wow.
That was my miracle. That was one of the first miracles. And it was the sacraments, the power of the sacraments.
That was within a couple of hours of you hearing the diagnosis.
24 hours later.
24 hours later,
So
wow.
I lived with dread and terror for about 24 hours. But I just knew the next day the doctor confirmed that we were seeing the doctor the next day in the clinic. And I just knew he was there.
Yeah.
And that had really helped.
Yeah. So your faith was a big part in dealing with this. So in your faith, there was a routine you kind of held before this, mass, or is it prayers in the morning? Did something change where okay, I need to do more, or I need to change things up so then I don't have that dread feeling again? Because obviously after the sacrament, you can have, I guess you could call it a spiritual high, like on top of the world, and I've got it. And then obviously we got to maintain that by staying with the Lord. We can always dip down. So what did you do? What did you change to maintain that high, knowing that the Lord is there?
And I think at that moment, I think it's moments of grace that where the heavens open and you feel God present even in those moments of dread. So you're right. That was a spiritual high for me. And then the next day when I saw the doctor and the surgeon, and they're like, "Oh, we got to do biopsies. It's not looking good because we think it's gone into your lymph nodes. So then we don't know where else it's traveled in your body. So then it's not just in the breast. It could be anywhere. So we don't know what stage it's." Potentially stage 3, maybe a stage 4 that's metastasized. So that was a real low. But that routine was in every moment. The routine totally changed because every moment I was clinging on to him. When I would experience like fear, Jesus, you're there. You're with me. God, you're with me.
So what kind of things did you get like a support group almost to get that sorted, or did you know other people who experienced a similar thing? Did you manage to get to have a chat with them to be able to guide you through that, or what was that like?
Yes to both.
Yes to both.
Okay, yes, so it was amazing community, and it's true. You need a village to support you as you raise a family for yourself, and it was amazing. The doorbell would ring, and people that'd be just food, or I could pick up the phone and someone would call and say, "How you doing?" And it would be sometimes just even. I would just be talking and they would listen, and then they would drop pearls of wisdom.
Oh, wow.
And it was just amazing. I remember this one, if I say it here, one friend said, there are radiators and there are drainers. So when you tell your diagnosis to other people, they are scared that it might happen to them. So they drain you. Say, what did you do? Did you eat this or did you eat that? Why is this caused? So that they know they can avoid those things. It doesn't happen to them. And they drain you. So, and then there are radiators who say, God's got this. And they're able to radiate God's strength to you that you are able to absorb and carry on.
So would you say those feelings were they like mental health wise, were they stress, or was it like stress of what has happened to my kids or my husband, or was it stress of what's happening to me, or was it a worry? Because stress is like more like I can do something about it, but it's like taking a while. It's going to take a bit for me to work a bit more to get there. What was it a stress or more like a worry? What is going to happen? What's going to happen? Unknown.
I think it was a bit of both because it was, so there is a regimen of when you're diagnosed with cancer, chemo and surgery and radiation. So there was a bit of stress. Are they going to get it right?
Okay.
You know, is it I'm going to be diagnosed with the right type of what's the right treatment? And it was the worry of how am I going to, how's my body going to face it? How my family going to deal with me being sick? And nothing, you know, the whole routine is upside down. Yeah. So it was that, I think it was both stress and worry at the same time. So it's that mentally very, very challenging.
Were there days where like you couldn't not couldn't reach out, that there were times where you had to be yourself, like be by yourself. So obviously you had your radiators that
Yeah.
you could call, and then you had people coming and dropping off food.
Mm.
Were there moments like, okay, I just need to be by myself for 10 minutes, or just today, just to figure out within myself, within my own thoughts, how to deal with this and get on with it, and be like, okay, what's next? Let's tackle that and let's get on with it nice and easy.
Yeah, it's true. I needed that space just
Mm-hmm.
to, and it was not me by myself, but with the creator who created me and who was
Mm,
journeying with me. And that was my lifeline. That was
mm,
my anchor. And my husband actually found this song. We spent a lot of time in worship music,
mm-hmm,
which really, music really stirs the soul in sometimes in ways that you cannot even predict.
mm-hmm,
And it's called, I only just remember these phrases in the song was dancing on the waves. And praying with that was like, always got this vision of this stormy sea,
mm-hmm,
and God's holding my hand and holding my children's hand and my husband's hand,
mm-hmm.
and we're dancing on that stormy sea.
Wow.
So that was powerful. So I
Mm-hmm,
know, even though I feel troubled,
mm-hmm.
God's got us all, because you go through the challenge and the journey as a family.
Mm. Were there moments that you felt burnt out? So it was like,
Mm-hmm.
I've done so much, like, you've done multiple chemo days,
Mm,
maybe after surgery or anything like that. It was like,
mm,
I'm like, you feel so sick and tired of this process. Like, I
mm.
just want this to be gone. And you felt so burnt out from
Oh,
that.
definitely. Definitely. There was
Mm-hmm,
very low moments. And times it was like, every cell in your body is being like, blanket bombed.
mm-hmm,
And it's your body is revolting against what's happening to it. So it was complete. It's like, how women can say they cannot explain labor pains, and
mm-hmm,
it's something that they it is it cannot be put into words. So
mm-hmm,
words fail me when I try to explain how you feel when you've had chemo, and I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. It was just really hard, and at those moments, it was hard to say God's even in this moment.
mm-hmm,
But I think it's that grace of prayers, other people praying, opens
mm-hmm,
the windows and doors to
mm-hmm.
God helping you through those really dark times.
Mm,
And this Bible verse was my favorite, Psalm 23, verse 4.
mhm.
Even though I walk through the valley of shadow and death, you are there. No evil shall I fear.
Wow,
So
that's incredible.
yeah, that was just, I just, sometimes you even like, Lord, I'm saying the words, it's almost like, just repetitive, like a
Mm-hmm.
mantra, but there's power in saying that
Okay.
and proclaiming God's word.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. So the faith aspect was really prominent.
Oh, yes.
So, well, I don't know. I feel like there's so much to unpack here. um, so you had your tough days.
Yes.
Were there moments you doubted God in those tough days, and how did you be like, okay, I can go back to God in this, even though this has happened?
Mm.
Were there doubts happening in those during that time?
There were doubts. There
Mm-hmm.
was anger.
Anger.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
And I would scream and shout in my mind and my heart. And
Mm-hmm,
it's like,
mm-hmm,
why? That was a recurring theme of why.
mm-hmm,
Till much later in the journey, I
mm-hmm,
understood that, I may not know why,
mm-hmm,
but things the way they rolled out later on in the journey, I got part of that answer to that question.
mm-hmm,
And I remember this in the chemo ward. It says there was this up there, this poster.
mm-hmm.
It's all right to have a bad day. It's never okay to give up.
Okay,
It's
okay.
okay to have a bad day and feel, okay, I just need this time to feel sorry for myself,
Mm-hmm,
and just, I'm feeling this mental anguish, this mental,
mm-hmm.
challenge, but it's never okay to
Okay.
give up.
Mm-hmm,
And I think God understands that as being human.
mm-hmm,
He's gone through, Jesus being on earth, he's gone through every human emotion that could be
mm-hmm,
experienced. And currently, I mean, it's just amazing that the oncologist has said cancer is 90% a mental disease.
wow.
10% is the physical. He said,
Mm-hmm,
I can help you with that 10%.
mm-hmm.
That 90% is what people struggle with.
Right.
And
Wow.
I mean, in the secular world, he said, you have to have your community of support.
Mm-hmm,
But I said, I have my faith,
mm-hmm,
and I have that community of faith around me.
mm-hmm,
And they said, not only all the healthcare professionals said, they said, we notice that people who have faith, who are positive
mm-hmm.
through the mental anguish they're going through, get better quicker.
Wow.
And not even just better as physically, it's just emotionally,
Mm.
mentally.
Wow.
When they can see that there is purpose in suffering.
Purpose and
That's a
suffering.
big one.
Wow.
Purpose in suffering.
Suffering.
It's not just because, oh, why did it happen to me? And I
Yeah.
can't see any reason why. Purpose
Purpose
in
and suffering.
suffering.
So in those, like you said, the bad times, were there moments like in certain places you were able to let that out, and certain places you had to hold it and be strong? So let's just say your children, for example, there were
Mm,
moments where you come back from a hospital visit and you had to pretend to be like it was all okay just for the
mm,
sake of them.
mm.
Were there moments like that, or were you able to just be all and just be vulnerable 24/7 in your safe space at home?
I think it's a learning journey because
Okay.
initially you want to be strong for the kids. You don't want to
Hmm.
break down.
Hmm.
And we actually told the kids, every step of the way in a child appropriate way,
Hmm.
what was happening, what could happen. And initially I was really like, I'm just going to hold it in.
Yeah. Mm.
But then I think children are very perceptive. They
Hmm.
realize you're not being authentic. And
Okay.
and that authenticity, it comes when you're able to be authentic,
Hmm.
completely authentic, then there is that less stress of, oh, is this right or wrong?
Hmm.
And so mentally part of your brain is freed up to say, I trust this emotion. So that actually gave me the courage to be authentic. If I'm
Mm.
having a bad day, I'm like, I was just on my face, and I would say, I'm not feeling right. I
Hmm.
can't do this, or and then they can work with that because it's
Hmm.
the truth and it's authenticity.
Wow. Were there any specific family members that helped you through that tough time? So your husband, or were there any moments that you could share with us that was like, wow, that really helped me out in a way that many people won't be able to understand?
Yeah, it was it was amazing. We say family prayers in the
Hmm.
evening, and we finished prayers, and our son said, "Mom, God's doing this for a reason and a purpose. You will see that." And this from a young teenager. And God speaks through the mouth of babes.
Yeah. Wow.
So that was a moment that my husband and our family remember.
Hmm.
And when I asked him later on, he said, "I don't know. Did I really say that?" So he was like,
Wow.
"Okay, there's something more than what we can physically see and touch happening here."
Wow.
Yeah.
So like that feeling of, I don't know where to start. So you've had your, how long was that cancer thing until you got into remission? How long was that journey?
So it was for about 9 to 12 months.
Nine
So
to
the
12 months.
the the treatment and regimen was that I actually have chemo first for the
Okay.
type of cancer,
Uh-huh.
and that's another. I'm just grateful I'm in this time, because 10 years ago they would hit you with everything
Possible.
possible
Mm-hmm.
without, and sometimes some cancers don't even respond to
Yeah.
chemo. So
Mm.
it was I'm just grateful even in this time and age that it happened.
Mm-hmm.
So they were able to identify what worked best. So I had to have chemo
Mm-hmm.
first before surgery,
Okay.
and even the chemo, it was, and so then surgery, radiation,
Okay.
and then kind of an immunotherapy,
Mm-hmm.
early stages of
Yeah.
immunotherapy. And so it took about 9 to 12 months. But then the journey continued where I'm on medication.
Medication right
And
now, is
yeah,
it?
yeah, and the journey continues because my body didn't respond well to medication. So
Okay.
every day is still that
Still there.
mental battle
Wow.
of, I'm not right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm suffering the effects of chemo, but he's got me.
Got you. Wow. Was there, obviously, many cancer patients, they get their hair lost.
Yes.
Did you manage to get a wig, or was that, how was that?
Oh, that was another miracle. It
Oh
was it was
wow.
just amazing. Will we share that? Yeah.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah,
Yeah,
what?
okay.
Share
So, and I think that's one of the very external features of knowing that someone's going through chemo.
that.
There's a
Yeah.
lot more going on
Inside,
inside.
yeah.
But I think for women especially, that's part of their identity.
Mm-hmm.
And hair is supposed to add to beauty.
Mm-hmm.
So I had all those issues and that mental anguish going in, and
Mm-hmm.
they warn you ahead, which was really good. The team warned you, the medical team, like, you're going to lose your hair. There are things you can try to do, but ultimately you're going to lose your hair.
Mm-hmm.
So after the second chemo, it was just dropping.
Oh wow.
And you know how when you have a hangnail
Yeah.
and it's just hanging there? That's what you feel in every pore on your head.
Wow.
And it's painful. It's agony.
Okay.
And it's dropping in your food. You're leaving a trail like the yellow brick road, like the Wizard of Oz. So I was like, okay, this is it. I want to have a shave because it's going to drop anyway.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So, but I was worried. I was scared, and I
Mm-hmm.
felt I'm going to look horrible. I'm going to be ashamed of myself the way I look. I'm going to be disgusted.
Mhm.
But I said a prayer. So, you have that down moment, and
Yeah.
then immediately, he's there.
Mhm.
So I said, Jesus, Mother Mary, help me.
Mhm.
Because you've been there, but I really need some
Yeah.
extra grace here.
Yeah.
So my husband said, "You ready?" So and my daughter, who's a teenager as
Mhm.
well, she helped, and I was so glad she had a ringside view to what was happening,
Mhm.
what true beauty is.
Wow.
And so once they shared, I said that prayer, and I said, Lord, before I look, I am worried I'm going to be, not good mentally.
Mhm.
And I looked in the mirror, and you won't believe, I didn't see me. I saw
Wow.
the way God saw me.
Wow.
And I was gorgeous. I was beautiful. I was daughter of the King of the universe. And that was just a miracle. And I was like, wow. I can, and sometimes, things are happening to you, almost looking out, you're like almost outside of yourself, and you're looking at what's happening. It was, oh, thank you, God. So it was,
Wow.
and I was, and he gave me that insight to all this. It's just,
Yeah.
distracting from what
Within.
he's created us to be, and how beautiful each one of us are in his eyes.
Wow.
And so I didn't need a wig
Oh
because
wow.
I owned it.
Wonderful.
I owned the only reason I would cover it because I feel cold. I didn't
Cold.
realize
Yeah.
how hair was such a great insulator. And I'm like, I really empathize with those men who are bald. But that was the only reason I would cover my head. But otherwise, I would just,
Wow.
it was,
Praise
this was
God.
me.
That's beautiful.
And yeah, so that was really a
Yeah.
very special moment.
Wow. That's wonderful to hear. Yeah, that's wonderful. That relationship you had with your daughter and your what must have grown immensely because
Yes.
of this. How is that looking now? Like, does that strength with each other, knowing that, oh, I know my daughter is capable of this, and your daughter's like, I know my mother is capable of this. I know that we're both so strong women, or even your son or your husband. We know that we're both so strong. We went through this together. How is that bond looking now in comparison to before?
Before the cancer.
Before the cancer and all, yeah.
It's strange. People saying it's counterintuitive, but I thank God for the gift of cancer.
Wow.
Because we were definitely not as good as what we are now. God has brought us to a different space. We were able to journey through a lot of challenges. You don't realize, you think you have your priorities right, but you need to stare your mortality in the face to understand, no, you got to be sweating the small stuff. And so as a family, we've grown a lot stronger with the Lord because of this, and because it's a shared experience.
Yeah.
So my marriage, our children, our family life, I think we're a lot more open. They've seen me at my worst, yeah. And so I think it's been, thank God for the
That's
cancer.
wonderful. So, would you say their mental health, you could witness that?
Yes.
Their mental health side of things, how they would come back from school one day and know that oh, my mother's feeling very sick. I don't know how my mother will be. I don't know if she'll be in bed like really sick, or she'll be up and like moving around and stuff. How did you manage to see that in your children when they would come back?
Yes, very much so. And I think they suffered, and I think they're still processing through trauma experience from that mental trauma of seeing me ill, that worry about, oh, could it happen to us too? How do I navigate through this challenging time? And so that was definitely, you experience the trauma as a family, and it's being open and communicating about it. Sometimes they don't even have the words, and it's leading them because they are younger and not as much life experience. And God helps you through that, navigate through that. It's a very cloudy area, but yes, I do believe we've experienced that trauma, but then God in the middle of that really helps you navigate those. And it takes years. It doesn't just go away, because not knowing, mom's going to be feeling really sick. Is she going to die, even though she's having, all this treatment? So yeah. So yes, definitely. Yeah. To your question.
And then for you, like your mental health, even would you say the place you went to, the hospital and thing, they provided a certain, like, okay, here's someone you could talk to, like a psychologist or someone to talk to guide you through that? Did you have that option, or did you take it?
Yes. Definitely. The oncologist was always very much on board, and he would always say, do you need to speak to someone to help you with your mental health? I didn't take the option, but I always knew the option was there. And just the faith and the community, my family,
Mhm.
really, they were almost like counselors, mini counselors in itself, leading me to the truth of what God's got for us.
Mhm.
And I would say the nurses in the ward, we call angels of mercy. They were
Angels.
angels. They were, just the way they would, sometimes they knew, and just their perception,
Mm.
they would just stand and listen to what you had to say. And sometimes, just words of wisdom, or, that feeling of you didn't do anything wrong to
Mm.
get this.
Yes.
I mean, especially in this type of cancer. I mean, in lung cancer, and there are other
Mm.
triggering factors externally. But this, you said, don't you think we'll scream it to the world if we know why people
Mhm.
are getting cancer?
Mhm.
We can kind of extrapolate, but really not.
Mhm.
Like, I know one of these, and this really hit so close. And she said, Maria, you're beating yourself up whether you were not really very, uh, healthy. She said, I know a woman who I treated. She grew all her own veggies. She was
Mhm.
vegan, and she gets bowel cancer.
Oh.
So there's really no
No.
reason, rhyme or
Mhm.
reason why.
Yeah.
So yes, so the healthcare professions always had that. You need to speak to somebody else, and
Mhm.
that support structure was always available if you
Mhm.
wanted to get to avail of something more.
Mm. Did you ever feel for you, community was a big thing in
Yes.
figuring out this diagnosis and going through it? Were the people, not specifically, but like more like you had a perception of them, and then after this, you realized how much more worth they have in your life? So for me, I know the worth of a pen when you need to write an exam. When you lose a pen, it's like, oh, I really need a pen. But when you have multiple, it's like, oh, it's whatever.
Yeah.
Do you have a feeling, wow, this community I have, you've grown to appreciate it more
Mm,
than you used to?
spot on.
Mm.
Yeah, just knowing that, a friend in need is a
And
friend
indeed.
indeed. So when the chips are down,
Hmm.
and you really know, and just being there, they were just there,
Yeah.
and how can I help? I
Hmm.
had a friend who dropped off food for 9 months, once a week,
Oh.
a three-course meal every week. I had friends who would pick up the kids from school, drop off.
Hmm.
I had friends who, when my husband couldn't be there for my appointments, would drive me to appointments and drive me back.
Hmm.
So it was just amazing that, as you said, when
Hmm.
when you only have one,
Yeah.
this was the one community that God just put there that I'm so grateful for.
Wow. That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Maria, for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for listening. Please do like, share, subscribe, comment. But yeah, thank you all for listening. Thank you.